Hello, I am Mac, at least for a day. Today I will be reviving one of my long-lost series, namely No Man's Sky YouTuber interviews. I'm joined today by Panda of the Hidden Panda Show. You there?
Hey, how's it going, Mac?
Great. And you're actually one of two people that run your channel, right? You and Hidden.
Exactly, yeah.
Yep. And your full name, I believe, is Panda Poopy. Is that correct?
Yeah, my gamer tag is Panda Poopy 1.
Yep. Yep. It's a very old and traditional surname. Well respected, I believe. Um, and so you and I are going to be discussing... Oh, well, first just tell us a little bit about your YouTube channel. Do you only cover No Man's Sky? I know you pretty much most of your videos lately have been live streams and shorter videos discussing No Man's Sky, correct?
Yeah, it's exactly. So we mostly cover No Man's Sky. We have other games that we cover on there, but it's more No Man's Sky focused. So we cover Elite Dangerous and sometimes More Fight and we kind of stream whatever we're in the mood to stream that day, which is mostly No Man's Sky, but generally speaking, it's mostly No Man's Sky on the channel.
Yep. And your format is very similar to mine, besides just live streaming. When you do a kind of a discussion video, I think you like play while talking about the game. I mean, as opposed to someone that like edits, like say MZK or just Jared, who does a bunch of edits and adds music and visuals. You mostly keep it plain, just playing the game and talking. Is that correct?
For a lot of the videos, some of them are edited. Generally my shorter videos are edited and might have some accompanying music and cuts and things like that. But my longer, usually just me talking over gameplay.
Yep. Yeah, and that's pretty much the way mine are. Okay, and so let's go ahead and get in. We're going to talk about the past and future of No Man's Sky, kind of debate our opinions of things. First, just give me your perspective on how'd you get started with No Man's Sky? Were you around before the game came out? I mean, obviously you were around, but did you know about the game before it came out? And how did the initial release and all that chaos? What impression did you have?
Yeah, so unlike my channel partner Hidden, who followed it very closely for like 4 years, I really only learned about the game at its E3 conference. In my personal profession, I'm in business management and marketing.
Oh, cool.
So when things are being sort of promoted, I don't generally follow that closely anyway, because I know it's a lot of marketing talk and stuff like that. So I heard about the game at E3. I kind of got excited just off the base premise, right, that you can just be on a planet, explore it, leave it, go to another one, do the same thing. That sold me, and I didn't really need to know more outside of that. And then subsequently purchased the game on release day. So I didn't follow it as closely as other people did. I knew enough information from E3 that I was like, yeah, that's dope. That's what I want to check out.
Mm-hmm. And what were your like initial impression of the game, and how did the kind of negative response from the rest of the players, how did that make you feel?
So the negative response from players really kind of bothered me, because I've always been somebody who tempers my expectations. Again, when you're hearing a lot of marketing speak, you know that your expectations shouldn't be too high, because you're just always setting yourself up for disappointment. I heard enough at E3 as far as how you would travel through space, what landing on a planet would be like, that kind of piqued my interest. Obviously, there was probably some promises that were broken, but the backlash I don't think was particularly fair, because you'll have AAA titles come out and they'll drop a very large, very expensive game and totally mess it up. And then fans get angry about that. But a development company of, I think at the time the game released was like 15 people total, and the whole organization, 9 of them were like programmers or something like that, or 6. The backlash was quick and fierce and really aggressive for such a small company that I thought it was
Yeah.
extremely unfair to kind of approach it like that.
Yeah, and for me personally, I wasn't involved at all before the game came out. I heard about it like right when it released, and then later in August I got it, and I didn't hear anything else about the game. I just saw some trailers, some very random comments about the game. I knew almost nothing about it, or any of the hype about it, and I just played the game. I loved it. And when it started to get, because obviously when the game first came out, admittedly it was very similar to an early release kind of game. It was very basic, but it was still really, really enjoyable in my opinion. And so I, of course, since I saw the potential in it, I really wanted them to update it more. So I started, surfing and seeing when they were going to update it, and that's when I suddenly found out about all of the hype before the game and the controversy, and I was kind of appalled by all the negativity towards it, and it just made me root for the game even more because I knew it had a lot of potential, and I still trusted the developers. I never thought that they tried to cheat anyone, and I knew that they were going to update it, and then of course eventually they did. And so I was never one that ever thought anything negative about them. Now, leading into that, now I would like to discuss Sean Murray specifically, how he was before the game came out and after. I'm going to go first, and then I'll get your thoughts. Before the game came out, he was like beloved by almost everyone. Everyone thought he was just this super sweet guy and a genius, and he had this amazing idea. And of course, that's where a lot of the hype came from, was because I remember watching a lot of pre-release, not interviews, but people that were discussing the game, that said that they were kind of carried away by Sean Murray when they talked to him, that he made them believe in him and believe in the game and everything. And so for the most part, he was very, very much beloved before the game came out. And then when the game came out, it was the opposite. He became extremely vilified by a lot of people. And it was like his reputation was now the opposite, that he was some horrible con artist, and that he had cheated everyone out of their money and disappeared because, of course, he and the rest of Hello Games went radio silent for the most part. And so now he was suddenly this like almost Hitler in the public eyes. Now for me personally, like I said, I never stopped thinking of him as anything but a really good person. Watching the pre-release interviews with him and everything, I could definitely match him up with the game, that what he did, the artistic vision and the technical aspect of how the game was made very much matched up with what he was saying it was, and his dream for what it was, and the potential. I saw the potential in him as I did with the game, and I never doubted him for a second. With one caveat though, and I'll get to that in a little bit. I want to go ahead and get your thoughts on Sean Murray. What kind of man is he? And what you think of him now, based, because you've done a lot of reports, which I forgot to say. I really like your channel because you've been reporting a lot of the rumors and information that people might not know that have come out from the other developers and the more recent things from Sean Murray. But yeah, just go ahead and tell me your impressions of what kind of person Sean Murray is.
Yeah, I mean, Sean Murray, at his core, I think is just a really decent, passionate guy about making video games. Um, he worked for a larger game developer. He wanted to go off and do his own thing, and he started his own studio. You know, it's the dream, right, that a lot of people fantasize about, is starting your own company. He did that. He took his skills, started his own company, and for a while they were making Joe Danger games, which are for cell phones. And his aspirations were much larger. His experience was in game engines and building games from the ground up. So he came up with this concept for No Man's Sky, right? And that's where my viewpoint of Sean Murray starts, because he essentially has taken a kid's dream and tried to make it reality, and he promoted it that way. Like this, like he said, a lot of people probably think I'm crazy for making this game or trying to make a game like this. And I think that a lot of what he was saying about the game, he was being truthful for the standpoint of what he wanted to see in the game. You know, being that I'm somebody who essentially, without being too specific, I take smaller companies or smaller divisions in companies and I market them and in the retail space and try to grow them. There's often a discrepancy between what the marketing company or the publishing company, which would be Sony, what they want versus the way that the developer envisions the game. And I think that Sean Murray got a little caught up in the way that Sony wanted him to promote the game combined with his visions of where the game would be. And the closer it got to release date and the more he had already said, it just became a burning ship at that point, that eventually this whole thing was going to sink because their studio got flooded. He had to remortgage, you know, his house or something like that to keep himself afloat. They had to get new equipment. They had to find a new studio. Sony's wanted them to stick to a release date. They tried to extend the game's release date out. They got death threats. His wife got death threats. And then when it all came to the end of it, they released what I would say is probably an early access title, because I don't think anybody disagrees that that wasn't the fully fleshed out game that Sean Murray envisioned. Something happened there. And I think he's a nice guy and had the best intentions. I don't think that he's some type of like sociopathic criminal who like lied about his game just to get money, like a lot of other people made it sound. There was some business involved there, and he doesn't have a lot of business savvy, not like Sony. And I think he just bit off more than he can chew. That's kind of a long-winded answer for that, but that's just kind of what I think about him and the release of the game.
Yep, and I agree with all of that. Now, like I said, I do have one criticism for Sean Murray, and it's kind of about the radio silence, but it's not what people usually say. I honestly don't have a problem with the radio silence that they go into whenever they're working on updating. In fact, before the game came out, Sean even said that he and his team like to kind of cut themselves off from social media and not really talk or interact with anyone while they're kind of basically getting their artistic juices flowing and all that. So I don't mind that. What I do mind is what Sean Murray sometimes does when he actually, does say something. For instance, right before the Foundation update, or just a little bit Foundation update, obviously people were freaking out. They were, vilifying Sean Murray and Hello Games. They were screaming for there to be some kind of an update, for them to do something. The negativity level on Reddit was insane. And then we suddenly had, do you remember the hacking scandal, where supposedly somebody hacked onto Sean Murray's Twitter account and tweeted, No Man's Sky was a mistake. Do you remember that?
Vaguely, yeah.
Yeah. So went up saying No Man's Sky was a mistake. People freaked out, and the tweet was immediately taken off. And then Sean Murray tweeted saying the only mistake was, triple or double whatever security measure to prevent being hacked on LinkedIn, which is how they got to his Twitter account. which is fine. That was pretty much the appropriate thing to say in that situation. But then he went on to make a joke saying that we're binge watching Mr. Robot in order to figure out what happened or whatever. In my opinion, that joke that he made, which of course people really made fun of, they turned the subreddit into a Mr. Robot subreddit for a while to make fun of it. And so what my criticism is that was at best it was a tone deaf thing to say, and at worst it was a pretentious thing to do, because he's making light of the fact that everybody's been well, not really making light of that fact, but in the midst of people screaming for him to say or do something, to tell them that he's still working on the game, to tell them that they haven't fled the country or are hiding out like everybody was saying, he suddenly comes on and makes a joke rather than, saying something to allay people's fears. He's just kind of like making fun of the fact that the community was basically hemorrhaging, that they had zero confidence in his company, and he's just making a joke because he got hacked and saying nothing else about how they're working on an update or anything. Of course, they did have an update, and so, history worked out well, but that was, in my opinion, very tone-deaf thing to say. And I guess you could say that he's, not very good with public relations and whatnot. But then that brings us also to the more recent occurrence. Sorry, one second. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yep. Okay.
So that brings us to the more recent tweet, Prawn Curry, which your channel covered, where, Sean Murray just tweets Prawn Curry without any tags or ats or anything like that. No explanation for what it meant or anything. And people are just left to try and figure out what the heck it means. And to me, of course, if it is something about the ARG, which wouldn't be surprising because we had the whole Mr. Noodle's food during the ARG, which basically was a super cryptic mail item that eventually made sense later. But if it's not, in my opinion, it's, again, kind of tone deaf for him to pull something like that and just tweet something random and see what happens, because I think it's possible all he did with that tweet was just peek his face out to see if there are still fans paying attention to him and see how they would react. Unless I'm wrong, maybe it is some kind of cryptic, and I think your channel, or so I heard, interpreted it as some kind of a message. So what are your thoughts on Sean Murray's actions and that more recent tweet?
Right, so I'm gonna cough just 1 second. So so we covered the whole Prawn Curry incident, and a lot of people in my comment section were saying that there was some sort of conversation that was happening in the subreddit where they were basically just calling Sean Murray different names that sounded like Sean Murray that were different things, and that it was just sort of a take on that. And I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is because going back to those sort of tone-deaf moments that you talked about, he didn't say anything for like a month and a half before that. He comes out and he says Prawn Curry, and then the whole entire Twittersphere explodes, and everybody, tinfoil is at an all-time high. Buy that stock, right? And Sean Murray doesn't say anything afterward. If it was really just the subreddit thing, maybe he would have come out, or maybe he should have come out and said, hey guys, check the subreddit, or put a link to the subreddit, just having fun with these guys. He allowed people to sit there and speculate and hype this up, And if we learned anything from the Waking Titan ARG, is that in their silence, they have been really good at monitoring what sets the community off. What sort of communications, what sort of little weird things will just make the No Man's Sky community explode. And I think that it was probably just a carefully placed thing. Maybe the words themselves don't mean anything. But to tweet at that time, and the timing specifically is interesting because it was on December 1st. So he tweets on the first day of December, prawn curry, with no follow-up, no explanation. There's this whole Reddit thing happening, but he could have easily silenced that. He didn't. 30 days from that day is going to be Unification Day, right? Which is built into the No Man's Sky lore. It's a script that Greg Buchanan wrote into the lore at a crashed ship. So there's just a few coincidences in there to me that make me think that that's just the first contact. He's making sure the community called up and just kind of making sure that they're paying attention to the social media now. And then pretty soon we're going to start getting little inklings of things. And I could be totally wrong, but half of the fun is speculating about it.
Yep, and I'm glad you say that it was something that Reddit was already doing before he tweeted that. Correct? They were already like making up things like prawn curry. Correct? Is that what you said?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and that's something that I mentioned when MZK covered the tweet as well, was because MZK didn't mention that. He didn't mention the fact that not really to criticize him, but I just pointed out that it had already been something on Reddit, and it could have just been Sean Murray making a joke to go along with what Reddit said. And I kind of agree with you. It is quite possible December isn't over yet. That it was kind of a precursor hint that something's going to happen in December. But at the same time, I still kind of think that it might just be him being kind of pretentious and maybe joking around with the community. I don't know. But time will tell.
It definitely could be.
Yeah,
and
time will tell.
Not to steal any Hidden's thunder when you get a chance to talk with him, later, but he is under the belief that basically there will not be an ARG in the classic sense, because he feels that the ARG will kick off with the next update and it will be part of the update. But he's got a really great theory on that. Me and him don't necessarily agree, but it's a really interesting theory, and I'm sure you'd probably like that. But it is an interesting thought that the ARG may actually come with the update, and a lot of people are anticipating the ARG beforehand.
Yep.
So.
Yep, yeah, and I will be interviewing Hidden later. So now I'd like to move on to the future of No Man's Sky. First, talk about multiplayer. Now, I don't know if it was you or Hidden, but one of you did a video recently that I watched where you said that you think multiplayer will be and should be the focus of the next update. Why don't you go ahead and give us your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that was me. So, and there's a lot of people out there that disagree with me on this, by the way. But I think that the next update will be, and if not, should be, like 95% multiplayer. And the reason why I say that is because the most ardent players of No Man's Sky that have stuck around through everything that's happened with this game, they're obviously okay with a single-player sort of campaign, at least enough that they've continued playing in a single-player way. Now, there's a lot out there that probably would like some type of PvE co-op environment, but a lot of the players that left the game left because they felt that they were promised or were anticipating a multiplayer. And they abandoned the game when two players sort of met up, and it didn't really go according to the plan that they had envisioned for the game, and so a lot of people abandoned it. In order for Hello Games to continue devoting time and attention to developing this game to its full potential, they have to bring a lot of those players back, and multiplayer is going to be one way to do that. because if no one is playing the game, it's going to slowly die in the darkness. And so multiplayer has to happen, and in my opinion. And I think that this update will be multiplayer. Where I sourced that information is there was an interview before the game came out, I think pretty shortly before the game actually released, and he was asked about the future of No Man's Sky himself. And he said that not everything is going to be available to the player on launch day. You won't be able to do everything right away. There's a lot of plans that we have, a lot is possible with No Man's Sky. And if players like the game and want to continue to see more and support the game, we have more developments planned for the future. And he listed 3 things. And I made a video about this as well. He listed base building, exocraft vehicles, freighters.
Yep.
And multiplayer. Okay, so I got that back. So base building and freighters, multiplayer, exocraft. So he got that in there. So he made those commitments in that interview. So with 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3, we got those 3 things: base building and freighters, exocraft vehicles, and sort of a multiplayer. So he's honored the 3 planned commitments that he's made for the game. But then he adds another caveat into the release notes and says, but this version of co-op, this joint exploration, is just the first step to what we're really trying to do. So why then would they do these orbs, right? The orbs you don't have to animate. They don't have legs, arms, they're not doing anything, you don't see the ship. They're just placeholders right now. So I think that all the players currently are guinea pigs, okay? And they're sitting back and they're watching all the statistics on their computer, and they're seeing all the concurrent players, how many are in certain lobbies, how well the system is running, all in preparation for a very large and comprehensive multiplayer update. And that's my prediction on that.
Yep. So this is where it becomes a bit more of a debate, because I definitely differ with you on this point. I do not believe that multiplayer should be a focus. I'm not saying that multiplayer shouldn't be messed with at all, but I do not think they should focus completely on multiplayer, because, well, first of all, they have technically done something multiplayer-like in every single update to the game, including the release of the game. When the game first released, the only multiplayer aspect there was naming things. Naming planets, stars, plants, animals, rocks, and then other players could potentially go there and see what you named. So that was the first multiplayer aspect, which almost no one viewed that as an actual multiplayer thing. But it was some way to interact with other people online, just very, very indirectly. Then in the Foundation update, we got something which at first didn't seem very big, but it ended up being a lot more major, in my opinion, was communication stations. We got base building, but that wasn't connected online at all at the time. But communication stations, you can read, you could see and read them when the Foundation update came out. So that was a major change, really, addition to the game. So the Foundation update had that multiplayer aspect. Then the Pathfinder update was much bigger, because we finally got base sharing. That was, for me, when multiplayer really kicked off. That was when I started the Spacing Guild, which is a group that at the time we would fly all the way across the galaxy using black holes and warping to visit other players' bases and visit them, leave them communication stations. I made videos of players' bases, other people did. So that's when multiplayer really kicked off for us. Even before we had the orbs, that was basically an aspect of multiplayer that we really got into. And now, of course, we have Atlas Rises, we have the orbs, we can see each other, we have game chat, we can make a little monument thing. However, I've done a lot with the orbs, and I can say, and before the orbs even were a thing, I always said that multiplayer would not be all that useful in No Man's Sky, and I don't think it ever will be too useful. It is nice to be able to be with others on a planet and kind of exist together. I don't think, if they are able to make it, combat possible, we can actually fight the same enemies, I don't think that will enhance the game at all, unless they greatly alter the combat system in the game, which I doubt they will. I don't think there's really much point in that for having co-op combat. It would enhance the game a lot if we could see each other's terrain manipulation, so that we could build sculptures to show each other, like in Minecraft. Or if we had simultaneous base building where you could actually see someone editing their base. But I don't think they should really concentrate on multiplayer a lot more. I do think we should get, and I think we will get, character models instead of the orbs. But I don't think, if they were to have the 1.4 update and the only thing they added was more multiplayer features, I think that would be a missed opportunity and a mistake, and it would not benefit them very much. For me, I believe the main gameplay loop of No Man's Sky is exploring, and that's why just about the only good thing about the multiplayer is exploring together. We in the Spacing Guild have had parties where we invite groups of people to a certain planet using portals, and we all get together and kind of mess around. And the nice thing about those parties is we would, one person would search around and say, hey, I found this building thing, come over here. So some other people would go over and see the cool thing or building or whatever that he found on that planet, and we just kind of explored together, just kind of messed around. And to me, I think that is basically the perfect kind of multiplayer that the game needs, and I don't really think it can be enhanced much more other than actually having individual character models and maybe being able to see each other's terrain manipulation. So I think really they should only just tweak multiplayer a little bit and not really do much else with that. And I'll go into what I think they should actually do, but I'll give you a chance to rebut what I said. What do you think?
Yeah, so I sort of disagree in that I think that multiplayer is going to be an important component in No Man's Sky moving forward. I don't think that a lot of No Man's Sky players want to see PvP. I think that if they include multiplayer in that variety, it should be on a PvP server or lobby for those types of players. I want them to really focus on the exploration and cooperation aspects of multiplayer, because the main base that plays No Man's Sky right now, we are explorers. Would you agree with that at least?
Yeah.
My favorite thing in the game, I think I probably have close to 1,000 screenshots. My favorite thing in the game is, I don't even like lush planets. I like finding really weird, crazy alien planet land formations and then taking a picture of it. But I also like dogfighting with pirates and stuff like that from time to time, which would be fun to do with a friend. Not against the friend, but with the friend. And that's the kind of multiplayer experience I'd be okay with. I think that if Hello Games does it, it's to bring a portion of the player base back that left, because they have to have people playing the game. It works really well in Elite Dangerous. I don't know if you've really played that game, but open play works really well, and then there's also a solo play option. So as long as they're giving the players the option to participate or not participate in certain aspects of multiplayer, then I'm fine with that. Also, in order to get multiplayer to function well, they are going to have to add a lot of single player stuff anyway. Like you said, combat elements. They're going to have to add quality of life and inventory management elements, and they're going to have to add certain trade elements, customization options. So we would get a lot of things with that. At first, I was sort of anticipating like 95% of it was going to be multiplayer. And then one of my subscribers, his name's Logshin, and I hope he sees this video because I'm kind of giving him credit. Him and I got into a really bad debate, sort of, on Twitter, and he made some really good points, and even Boondock jumped in, and he was like, this can't be all multiplayer. Like, if they do not add more single-player enhancements with terrain generation and visuals and planetary biomes and stuff like that, they are going to upset a lot of people, you know?
Yep, and I'm kind of in that camp. What I think the game really needs is more variety. Because like I said, the main gameplay loop of No Man's Sky is exploring. And if they don't, I'm not saying they shouldn't add more multiplayer, but if they concentrate on multiplayer and sacrifice working on the variety, that would be the detriment. And like I said, they've added some to multiplayer in every update. So I think some kind of aspect of multiplayer. So I think they're going to continue with that pattern. They're going to add a little bit of multiplayer every time while also adding other things. And what was I going to say? So yeah, yes, and we have a sign that they are going to concentrate on variety, like planet, building, animal, plant, everything variety, because another thing they do in every update, after every single update, they always update their blog, the job section of Hello Games' blog, asking for new employees. And after Foundation, they asked for a writer. That's how we got Greg Buchanan. And now he's finished his job, apparently. And that, to me, is a signal that we're not going to get a lot more storyline, at least for a while. But I'll get into that in a little bit. And then in Pathfinder, we got, they asked for, I believe it was more programmers, which we know that they got as well. There was a guy that somebody noticed on LinkedIn. He was a procedural generation expert that was hired by Hello Games. I don't remember his name or anything, but so we know that they got that employee they asked for at the end of Pathfinder. They also asked for some other employees, like a manager, production manager that would like manage everybody, make sure they're all working on the right things or whatever. And like a secretarial job. We don't know if they filled those positions, but we do know they filled the programmer position. And then 1.3 came out. That gives us another hint towards what they're going to work on next. They asked for 3 artists: a graduate artist, like a beginner artist, an expert artist, and a
visual effects artist.
Yes, visual effects artist. So that, to me, is a signal that they are going to concentrate more on variety in the game. At least the 2 artists will probably be working on the props, the assets, everything for adding more to the planet generation, ships, etc., etc. And then the visual effects artist, I think, is probably going to be the character animations, working on player character animations, and maybe finally make NPCs stand up and walk around, which would be nice. And maybe other things, I don't know what, maybe like some kind of space effect, maybe space whales, who knows. But I do think that is going to be the next thing they're going to concentrate on, because they concentrated on story and some more multiplayer, and they have added a few more assets here and there. Not a lot, though. And of course, we got the exotic planets, which aren't super great because they're pretty limited. They don't vary very much. But it is good that was a step in the right direction. So, in my opinion, I do not think they're going to concentrate on multiplayer. I do think that they will add more to multiplayer, but I think the next thing coming up is probably variety and maybe some more storyline if Greg Buchanan, like you said in your video, if he wrote up a whole bunch more storyline that they're going to use later, like in the next update, then they might add more storyline. But who knows? So what do you think?
Well, and just touching back on the whole Greg Buchanan thing, I do have an update to that I haven't made a video on yet. So if you go to Greg Buchanan's Twitter, like, and you kind of search back the last couple of weeks, which would take forever because he posts a lot actually, but he did make a statement in there that he left Hello Games. Obviously, his contract was done. He finished his work. But later on, he also does a post that he finished up some additional work to be used later with a project that he's been working on, but he didn't specifically say what that was. And I think that that's related to No Man's Sky. So I think that he wrote up some additional pieces to be utilized in the next update or next few updates. Personally, I don't have any proof of that, but I just kind of infer that from his post.
Yep.
But then also, just the whole like kind of what you're saying with every single update, they've added some sort of multiplayer feature, but it's never been the highlight. I think we're just going to get the same sort of formula, but just in reverse. I think the multiplayer components will be the highlight, but we're going to get some additional under the hood stuff in there as well. There has to be.
Yeah.
But you know, it's kind of, I think Sean Murray never envisioned his game as an MMO, and I think that he's going to try everything possible to not let it be that.
Yeah.
I think that they just want people to have shared experiences in the game.
Yeah, the other thing I forgot to say was we know for a fact that there will never be PvP because pre-release Sean Murray said in an interview that he does not like games that have death matches. He does not like dystopian sci-fi. He wanted No Man's Sky to be a bright, positive kind of future game, and that there wouldn't be death matches or PvP or anything like that. Like pretty much every time someone asked him about multiplayer, he said, well, it's not going to be PvP, but you will be able to, you know, see each other and so on and so forth. So we know pretty much for a fact there will never be PvP unless Sean, you know, totally reverses his opinion, which I highly doubt. So I think it's safe to say there won't be PvP, but I do think there will be more with multiplayer. So we're gonna have to wrap it up because I can only capture up to an hour. I'd like to keep talking, but I'll let you, you know, give a last little word if you want to. But I need to make sure that I can capture this video. Do you have anything else?
Thank you. Yeah, so, you know, just like you are, Mac, and the people that watch your channel, and by the way, I think I'm subbed to your channel and I watch it, your streams especially, but, you know, I'm a big fan of No Man's Sky, and I want people out there to know that. I'm a huge fan. I speculate a lot of different things because I care and I'm interested, and I think it's just fun. I think it's fun to just, it's part of what we've learned with Sean Murray not speaking to us much. As a community, we've kind of created our own experiences in the game. We've created our own multiplayer, so to speak. We've created our own, you know, hubs and leagues and all these guilds and all these different things. And so just being part of that community is a lot of fun. Speculating on what's next is a lot of fun. I love your channel. You know, anybody listening, check out the Hidden Panda Show. You know, we go tinfoil, we go deep. And thank you for the opportunity for allowing me to be interviewed by you and to be on your channel, Mac.
Yep, yeah, and I definitely encourage the viewers out there to check out your channel as well. And I will be doing another interview with Hidden Panda, or not, sorry, just Hidden, later. It'll be like part 2 of this little series. And I will say one last thing about the silence. I mentioned that I didn't mind the radio silence of Hello Games, and actually I think it's a positive for us as creators of content because they don't talk very much, because they don't say what they're working on, because they don't give us a specific release date. That actually, you know, enhances it for people like you and I that make videos of speculation. It actually, you know, adds to the hype and adds to the enjoyment of it's basically an ARG. No Man's Sky has been an ARG from the very beginning. It's always been about trying to figure out the clues and figure out what's going on with Hello Games, whether they liked that part or not. And I think they kind of embraced that with the Waking Titan ARG. But that's a discussion for another time. So thank you, Panda. I really appreciate you coming on to my channel. And again, I want the viewers to check your channel out, the Hidden Panda Show. And we have been Mac4Day and Panda, and we look forward to seeing all of you in our future videos.
Absolutely. Take care, guys.